Shalom. Thanks for joining me again. I'm continuing to read in Matthew chapter 15 from the New International Version, by the way. And I'm beginning now in verse 21. And this chapter is all about Jesus breaking barriers. So here's another barrier that Jesus is breaking. He leaves Jewish territory and he goes up to Tyre and Sidon. This is in what today is what then would be Lebanon, or Phoenicia is the day for then. Today it'd be Lebanon. And these are not Jews. These are Gentile territory, and it's important to recognize that. There are Jews living up there, and Jesus is expanding his Galilean ministry, which is the northern part of Israel, up into what then is Phoenicia, or Lebanon today, and that would be where there are some Jews that live, but mostly this is Gentile territory, and it's very interesting about this. There's a long history behind Tyre and Sidon and Lebanon and Israel during the time of King David, when David became the second king of Israel, and he wanted to build a palace, and he also wanted to build a temple. He went up north to Hiram, who was the king then of that area of Tyre and Sidon and Phoenicia, and he got cypress wood from there, and it was shipped down to Israel. And also Hiram sent a really great mason, stone worker, and builder to come and help build the palace and also build the temple later when Solomon did that. So there's a long history of positive relations between Israel and Lebanon. There kind of still is even today, if it were not for Hezbollah occupying much of Lebanon. Most of the Lebanese people get along quite fine with Israel, and they would like it to go back to that. But we'll see. We'll see what comes from that in modern times. We have no idea. So here is the story of Jesus expanding his Galilean ministry into Lebanon, into Gentile territory, but addressing and looking for Jews there. But watch what happens. Again, this is pushing a boundary here, so watch what happens. Beginning of verse 21. Leaving that place, this is where Jesus had talked about out of the heart. It's in your heart is what defiles you, not the food that you eat. So he's down now, leaving that area. So leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him, crying out, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly." A Canaanite woman. It's important that Matthew brings that out because the Canaanites were the enemies of Israel. When Israel began to occupy the land under Joshua, in 1446 BC is when the Exodus took place. In 1406 BC is when Joshua crossed the Jordan River and the Israelites began to take the land. They were taking the land of the Canaanites. It was Canaan. That's the correct pronunciation. The Canaanites were the natural enemy, the Canaanites. So this is an enemy of Israel. This is an enemy coming to Jesus, and she is recognizing who Jesus is. She's not a Jew. She's an enemy. But she comes to Jesus, and she calls him Lord, Kurios, which means God. And she also calls him Son of David. She's recognizing that he is the Messiah. She's recognizing something that even Jews aren't recognizing, that Jesus is the Messiah. So she gives him those titles, Lord, Son of David. And she says, "Have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly." Jesus did not answer a word. So his disciples came to him and urged him, "Send her away, for she keeps crying out for us." It's interesting. Jesus chose not to address her, talk to her. Remember, he came for one reason, and here's what he said in verse 24. He answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." I didn't come up here to start preaching to a bunch of Gentiles, especially Canaanites. I came up here to speak and seek only my fellow Jews. Now that's interesting. It doesn't present Jesus in a nice light, does it? It kind of makes us go, man, what, that doesn't look like the Jesus that I'm used to. A lot of us have an image in our mind that God is supposed to be who we think he's supposed to be. And then whenever God, or Jesus in this case, does something that we don't like or that's unexpected or just seems out of character, it puzzles us, it bothers us. We'd like to ignore it or we'd like to explain it away. No, you don't do that. This is who Jesus is. This is what he's doing. Accept it. That's it. Whether you like it or not. It's quite irrelevant whether we approve of it or not. This is what he did. He chose not to answer this woman. But watch what she does. The woman came and she knelt before him. Kurios, Lord, help me. She's showing faith. And watch what Jesus says to her. It's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. By the way, the use of the word dog, that is a harsh derogative, and it is even to this day in the Middle East, among Arabs especially, among Muslims especially, to call someone a dog is one of the harshest insults you can give to someone. And so Jesus is using a derogatory term here. He's basically saying, you're one of the dogs. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus said, don't give that which is holy to dogs. So this is a derogatory statement. And Jesus is actually being pretty unkind here, in case that's hard, I know, to take. But watch what happens. This is really awesome, okay? It's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. She says, yes, it is, Lord. She said, even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. This is a woman with an enormous amount of humility. She knows she is not a Jew. She knows that Jesus didn't come for Gentiles. And she knows her position. And yet, she uses that same derogatory term, describing even herself as I'm like a little dog under the table and you're the master's table, and whatever crumbs you give us, we'll take. And then Jesus is moved by that. He's changed. And watch this. He says, Jesus said to her, woman, you have great faith. By the way, there's only one other place where Jesus called someone's faith great, and it was not a Jew either. It was another Gentile. It was a centurion who came to Jesus and said, my servant is sick. Please heal him. And Jesus started to say, I'll go with you. And the centurion said, no, I'm not worthy of that. But I understand authority. I'm a man in authority, and you are too. Using your authority, you just speak the word of command, and I know it will happen. And literally, Jesus' mouth fell open. And the way it's described in the Gospel is that he was so astonished and shocked that his mouth would fall open. And he said, no one in Israel has as great a faith as you have. And now here's only the second time that he said this is a person with great faith. And it also is another Gentile. By the way, it's very significant that this is included in the Gospel of Matthew, very Jewish gospel. Matthew's writing his gospel to his fellow Jews. And he has used one Gentile earlier. Now he's speaking again of another Gentile. And both times Jesus said, these people have a greater faith. So here he is saying to this woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted. And her daughter was healed at that moment. Faith, the desperation of a mother wanting her daughter to be healed. She was willing to do anything. She was willing to even humble herself to the point of calling herself a dog. And Jesus moved with that. Said, you have great faith. That's Jesus. Thanks for joining me.